You know, it's a wonderfully rainy day out there today. And I'm not kidding, I actually do like days like today. It's calm. I'd rather be at home with a cup of tea watching the world go by through the window, but I really do like days like today. But they make me think. And, well, today's no different. And I started thinking, and you know what? I found a story that I think I wanted to share with you guys today. So let's do that. Let me tell you a story. I know it's weird for me to start that way, but let's do that. I want to tell you about two couples today. Two couples who went on a pretty epic journey. Not together, but kind of. We'll get into that. The first couple I want to talk to you about, named Alex and Ariana. Now, Alex and Ariana met when they were very young in their church youth group. They discovered that they had a certain fondness for each other that grew as they got older and spent more time with each other. And pretty soon, well, they got married. Now, they loved each other more than anything else. And they just love spending time with each other, you know, that wonderful stuff. Now, the problem is, love doesn't pay the bills, and they were broke. They were poor all the time, but they had each other, and that was wonderful, and that's all they really needed. But they still had to work. So Alex and Ariana went and they started working, and they worked long hours, they worked hard hours, and the amount of money that they were pulling, it was just enough to make ends meet. They had a little apartment that they were renting, and just the tiniest little bit of money left over after every paycheck. Once all the bills are paid, all food was bought, and they were able to put this into a bank account. Now, why were they doing this? They had a goal. Right from the get-go, they had a goal. Someday, we're going to build our own house the way we want it, just for us. That was their dream. That was their goal. And they set out to go do that. Okay, pause. I'm going to set Alex and Ariana aside. We're going to talk about the next couple called Tom and Tammy. Now, they were very different. They met, early 20s and kind of fond of each other, both very attractive people, and, they liked spending time with each other. And so they got married. Why not? It seemed like the thing to do at the time. And their economic status was very different. See, Tom had some money, and he was doing pretty well, but Tammy, she came from money. Her dad was just loaded, owned his own company, very successful. And so once Tammy and Tom got married, Tammy's dad said, "Hey, Tom, I like the cut of your jib. You seem to like my daughter. Come work for me, and I'll give you this salary, this corner office, all the fun stuff." And Tom was set for life. Tammy already had money. She had a trust fund and had money. Money was never an issue with these guys. They did what they want, whatever they wanted to buy, they were fine. Well, they decided, actually, you know what? Instead of living in this beautiful apartment that we have in the city, let's go build our own house out in the country, and we'll have this little get together, or this little place that we can go and spend time out there. And by little, we're talking the 8-bedroom, 5-bathroom, that type of thing. So they decided they're going to go build their own house. Pause. Let's go back over to Alex and Ariana. Time goes by, and after working so hard for so many years, they finally saved up all the money that they needed for that down payment on that plot of land that they wanted, and they had their eye on for an awful long time, and they were able to start towards their dream. So they went and they bought this plot of land. Now, they had scouted this thing out years ago, and for some reason, nobody had ever purchased this. It was up in northern Ontario-ish, kind of the Muskoka area. And there are lakes everywhere up there. It was this little lake that was just absolutely gorgeous. Loons coming in, beautiful sunsets. Not a lot of waves on this lake because it wasn't that big enough to get waves. Just perfect, just beautiful. And they had all the money they needed to buy the plot of land they wanted. So they did. They bought the land, and they set out starting to build their dream house. But before they started even putting the shovel into the ground, they knew they had to find some answers. So they went to the closest town, and they found a local contractor named Steve. Now, Steve was brilliant at his job. Everybody knew Steve, and he was not only brilliant at his job, he was an upstanding, honest, and ethical guy. Well, when Alex and Ariana went and they talked to him, they said, "Listen, this is kind of what we're doing, and we would like to know if we can get some advice from you. We don't have a lot of money. We're willing to pay whatever we can. And after Steve hearing this story, he went, you know what, guys, I started at one time too. Don't worry about the payments. I'm happy to help you. Let's go take a look at that land. So they went out and they checked out the plot of land, and Steve went back to his office and he looked up all the surveys for the area and found out something rather interesting that Alex and Ariana needed to know. So he called them up and he said, guys, you have picked a beautiful spot for your house. However, if you build your house where you want to, it may not be entirely stable unless you happen to go down very deep into this bedrock that happens to be shooting through there. There's a shelf of bedrock. If you do that, you'll be just fine and you can build your house. You'll be fine for decades. Okay. It's going to add a little bit of extra money, but we need to do that because we want to make sure our house is going to be okay. So fine, let's do that. Pause. Set them aside. Let's bring Tom and Tammy back in. Now, Tom and Tammy went out and, wouldn't you know, they found a plot of land right beside where Alex and Ariana were going to be building. And they actually did the same thing. They went to town, they found Steve, and they asked him the same questions. And Steve said, I can't believe this, but you guys are in luck. I was just out there helping the people right beside you build their house. And I'll tell you the same thing I told them. You need to dig down into that bedrock, otherwise your house may be in danger. That lake floods every year, and you don't want your house being affected by that. Okay. So Tom and Tammy left, and Tom looks at Tammy and says, you know what? I think I'm smarter than him. I know he's a contractor, but I'm not a stupid guy either. We don't need to dig down and spend all that extra money. If the lake floods about 20 feet up onto the shoreline, let's build our house 40 feet back. It'll be fine. Tammy went, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Let's do that. Okay. Well, that's what they did. They started building a little bit farther back. Alex and Ariana built right where they were going to, but they followed Steve's advice. Now, as these two houses were going up, both couples kept going back to Steve and asking for some advice. Now, every time Alex and Ariana got the advice, they would listen to it to the letter and go and do what Steve said. And every time Steve told Tom and Tammy some advice, they wouldn't listen to it. Why they even go ask? I don't know. But they would go back and shortcut everything that he said just to save some money, even though they didn't need to. Whatever. Both houses get built. It's end of fall when the houses are completely finished and winter rolls in. Well, throughout the winter, everything is just fine, except there happens to be a larger than normal amount of snow falling that winter. And the snow piled up and piled up and piled up. And Tom and Tammy decided, you know what, let's live out by the lake for the winter time. Let's see what it's like. We've never done that before. And of course, Alex and Ariana were already out there living at their place. Well, the problem is when you get a lot of snow, it will eventually melt. And if it melts, the water's got to go somewhere. If it's a slow melt, you're fine. However, that's not what happened this year. About midway through one spring day, in early March, it started to rain. And not the light rain like we've got going today. We're talking heavy rain, thunderstorm rain, which means it was actually starting to get warm outside too. And all of that snow started to melt and melt quickly. Nighttime rolls around, and Alex and Ariana are sitting in their living room. They've got a fire going. They're each reading a book and talking and having a cup of tea. And some lightning strikes and thunder crashes. And then there was this loud boom that didn't sound like the storm. Well, they ran over to the window to find out what had happened, only to see part of the house next door, Tom and Tammy's house, was now not standing, but crumbled inside. They couldn't see very much. It was so storming outside. They had to wait till morning. And when morning finally rolled around, they went out to go check to see what had happened, wondering if everybody was okay. Well, actually, they knew Tom and Tammy weren't home that night. They had gone into town because I think it was an anniversary or something, so they're spending it at a hotel. Well, Tom and Tammy come back into the house, and Alex and Ariana are already out there looking at this house that had basically half disappeared into a hole. And everybody is absolutely shocked at what had happened. Well, Steve heard about this, and he jumps in his car, and he rolls out there as fast as he can. When he gets there, he sees this house, and he goes, oh, no, wait a minute. That shouldn't have happened. I know why this happened, and that shouldn't have happened. And he went over and he talked to Tom and Tammy. He said, did I not tell you to dig into the bedrock that was down there? I don't see any support beams on this house. I don't see anything digging down into there. Did you not do it? And Tom said, well, no, I didn't think we had to. You said the water only flooded up about 20 feet. We built back 40 feet. We should have been fine. Well, the water that it came off the lake that year went 80 feet up the shoreline and hollowed out underneath that house, and that's why it fell. And Steve was furious with him, and he said, I wasted all of that time explaining things to you, and you didn't listen. Did you listen to anything I said? And they kind of went, well, not really. I mean, you said it, and we just kind of did our own thing because, well, we thought we knew better. Steve said, well, fortunately for you, I have been keeping track of all the time that I spent talking with you, and since you know better, that's fine. I'm going to send you a bill for everything that I had talked to you about. I wasn't going to. You're getting the full brunt of everything now. You just ticked me off that much. It was a lot of money. Well, at the end of the day, Alex and Ariana, their house was fine because their house was in the bedrock. Tom and Tammy, they didn't do very well because they didn't listen. And they had one ticked off contractor. Why did I tell you that story? Well, that story mimics another story that Jesus told one time. Let me read that for you. It's out of Luke 6, verse 46. And Jesus said, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and then not do as I tell you? Everyone who comes to me and hears my words and does them, I'll show you what he is like. He is like a man building a house who dug deep and laid the foundation into the rock. And when the flood arose and the stream broke against the house, it could not shake it, because it had been well built. But he who hears me and does not listen is like the man who built a house on the ground with no foundation. And when the stream broke against it, it immediately fell, and the ruin of the house was great. Guys, we've been trying to bring you some words from Jesus for a year now on here, and trying to lift you up and give you bits of advice. And I hope some of you are listening to it. In fact, I hope all of you are listening to it. But I encourage you that whenever we bring scriptures to you, that you listen to them and you follow them, because they're not just words on a page for no reason, and we're not just saying these for the sake of being heard. We can do that anywhere. We do this for you. I do this for me as well, because I need to hear them as well. But when we hear them, not only should we listen to them, we should follow them, because I'm not sure whether you paid attention or not over the last year, but we're kind of in a bit of a storm right now. And right now would be a good time to have a firm foundation so that you couldn't be shaken and moved around. Don't you think? To me, Jesus is my firm foundation. I've listened to his words before. I continue to listen to his words. And when troubles come and floods arise and things get really, really difficult, I can dig down deep and know that my foundation is Christ and I don't go anywhere. I've had some pretty awful things happen over the last year that I could talk about. I'm not going to just yet. Probably will later. But if I didn't have Christ, it would have been a very different story. And I want to encourage you guys right now. Maybe I haven't been as blunt as that yet this year. Let me tell you, blunt as anything. You need Christ. You need Jesus. He will help you weather these storms. He will help you get through all of this bad stuff that's going on out there. Unscathed? Likely not. But you will definitely get through. That's what I wanted to bring to you guys today. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope it meant something to you. And like I said before, if you have any ideas for stories or things that you want us to talk about, leave them in the comments down below. If you like these videos, please give them a like and share them with anybody you want to. So until then, God bless y'all and hope to see you soon.